So I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be with you here today. My name is Czarnik, and I teach across the country. I teach people how to recruit, retain, and develop talent. And the session today is called "Why Great Employees Can't Find You." And I fundamentally, in 25 minutes, I'm going to change the way you look at recruiting forever, because nobody needs to tell you to just change a few words in your advertising or raise your wages or none of that. I don't encourage people to raise their wages. I offer only zero cost solutions for organizations around the country, but ones that are based in proven ideas from different areas of our economy. And so you don't have to believe me as I try to teach you today about how to go to employees instead of waiting for employees to come to you from your job ad. My job is to teach you to become hunters of talent instead of farmers of talent, but to use ideas that billion-dollar companies have been using for decades in order to sell us everything in our life, carpet and chalupas and chairs and everything else in our life. And so while we know for sure, and I won't spend any time on the shortage because you know about the shortage, but it is a mathematical certainty that for the next 8.5 years, there are not enough breathing human beings to fill all the open jobs in America. There are going to be winners and losers in the war for talent. My job is to just give you strategies that are zero cost that will make you one of those winners and put you 3 years ahead of everybody else. So why can't people find you? Well, there's a couple of statistics that are important to you. I've worked with about 3,000 individual job seekers, all the way from college students to 50-year-old, mid-career professionals. And I can tell you that 70% of them, when I help them with their job search, when I'm sitting across the table from them with tears in their eyes and they have no idea how to make their house payment in the next 6 weeks, and I start walking them through human search engine, the process that I teach for job search, what I am teaching them to do is to build a model, a persona of the kind of company that they're going to look for. What I'm going to teach you today is exactly the same thing, how you create a persona of the ideal applicant. And I'll explain to you why you have to do that, because I did a search before we started today. In Racine County, there are some 47,000 organizations, 47,000 companies within 30 miles of where this event is taking place today. And even though you guys live in Racine and you work in Racine and you have businesses in Racine and you network in Racine, of those 47,000, my guess is that you couldn't name 300 of them if you had a gun to your head. Is it possible that even though your company has been in place for 42 years, you have signs all over the place, you are part of the Rotary, you do volunteer, is it possible that people can't find you? Well, I'm a binary guy. I do. Listen, I'm a process guy. I'm an operations guy. If things that in my world, if they can't logically, if they're not logical, if they're not sequential, if I can't measure and audit it, they don't exist. So I only think there's two possibilities here. Either people are unwilling or unable to come to your organization. That's it. That's the only possibilities. And we need to figure out which one of them is true and then teach you how to fix it. Unable means that they physically can't come to see you. They have no idea your company exists, have never thought of your industry, have no idea you exist, or they have, and please capture this, they have a false preconceived notion. This one is super common to the people who are not coming to you, the people that you wish were applying, but are not. They have some false preconceived notion about what it would be like to work for your company and your industry. And I'm going to teach you how to turn that on its head. So it has to be one of two things. They're either unwilling or unable to come to work for you. Either they didn't see your job ad, or they saw your job ad and they didn't know everything they need to know about it, and they made a conscious value decision not to come. Well, the trouble is all HR people have been designed to do, all they've ever been taught to do is to be farmers of talent, put out a job ad and then sort through the people that come to them. I think fundamentally, I want to change your mind about that today. I think fishing and recruiting have an awful lot in common. There are two ways to go fishing, just like there's two ways to find people in your recruiting efforts. You can drag a net across the lake, gather up a bunch of fish, and then sit on the shore and throw back all the ones that aren't trout. And at the end of the day, you'll have 50 trout. Or you can study trout. You can understand trout. You can go talk to people who fish trout for a living. You can understand the lakes that they're in. You can understand the depth that they fish at. You can understand the lures that they use. You can understand the time of day that fish at. And when you focus all of your efforts only on those things that are trout, you will catch many, many less fish, but they'll all be trout. And I want to tell you that this is what billion-dollar companies do in order to sell you everything in your life. The very first thing that I'm going to teach you to do today is they create a persona of their ideal customer. So again, you don't have to believe my work at all, not at all. But you do have to believe Nike, and you do have to believe Ford, and you do have to believe General Electric and General Motors. And what you're going to realize is that the very first thing that Porsche does, before they try to sell me a Porsche 911 Turbo for $120,000, before they design the engine, the driveline, anything else, they create a persona of the person who's most likely to buy it. And in this case, they would create the persona of me, right? A 58-year-old balding guy whose kids are out of the house, who's single, has lots of discretionary income, and they would identify everything that I do. What are my hobbies? How do I spend my time? What's important to me? Where do I spend my time when I'm not at work? And that's why they advertise at the Super Bowl, because they know at the Super Bowl or in football games, you sell beer and cars because we know exactly who's going to be watching that show. And so if you want to use that idea to put your advertising in the exact place that the people that you're looking for are, at the time that they're looking, in the emotional state and with the flux in their life, to put the answer to their next job right in front of them, that's what I want to teach you to do today. The other example of this is an end cap in a grocery store. And I'll do this very quickly, but you've all seen end caps in a grocery store. And I don't know if you know this, but Campbell's pays something like $1,700 to $3,000 a month for every single end cap in every single grocery store in America. So this idea must work for them. Well, why does an end cap work? Because they did the study. They did enough surveying of people who buy tomato soup to say that they didn't really care what can of soup they bought. We as consumers couldn't care less mostly about what brand of tomato soup we buy, but we know it's got to be less than $1 a can, less than 300 calories per serving, has to be a name brand, and has to have less than 400 milligrams of salt. And so when you turn down the aisle in the grocery store, about to be assaulted by 72 cans of tomato soup, just like your job seekers are looking at, have the ability to look at 100 job posts an hour, now in the age of Indeed and all the other job posting sites, right before you turn down the aisle to get assaulted by 72 cans of tomato soup, I'll be damned if there's not an end cap with Campbell's tomato soup, 97 cents a can, 250 calories per serving, and 300 milligrams of salt. And what do? You take it, you put it in your cart, and you walk past all of the other tomato soup that's on the aisle. And that's what I want to teach you to do with your job ad. If we can identify exactly who your ideal candidate is, and we study them and understand them and know exactly what they're looking for, what job your job is aspirational for. Who is in a job today where your job is an aspirational job for you? And so what I want to do today is then talk about this. The very first thing that billion-dollar companies do, and I'm going to suggest your staff and your HR staff do, your recruiting staff do, the very first thing you should do is to create a persona of your ideal applicant. Now, again, this is totally different. What we have been taught in the last 30 years of HR is if you post it, they will come, which is the equivalent of dragging the net across the lake, and then we sort out all the fish that are on trout. We create a persona of an ideal applicant, and we start building that persona by talking to our current people. We don't do this in theory. We don't do this out of the blue. What we do is we talk to our own best employees in the job that we're looking to fill, and we ask them these questions. Of course, we're going to ask them about education experience, but the next thing we're going to ask them is we're going to identify their personality type, because personality typing is the most important but most underused thing in hiring. And I'm going to give you right now a free site where you can do personality typing for free with everybody in your organization. It's called 16personalities.com, the number 16personalities.com. And in that particular case, you could go and have every one of your great employees in the kind of jobs that you're looking to recruit take this test and identify the 2 or 3 personality types of the 16 personality types that are a perfect fit for your culture and for that job. And then you can research after you find their 4-letter designation, ISTJ, ENFP, whatever that thing is. There's all this research to say, what are their values? What words do they respond to? What's important to them in their jobs? You can understand the trout by taking a look at the trout currently in your organization and understanding how they think, how they feel, what's important to them, why they came to your organization, and why they stay. So we can also ask those people and create the persona of what job were they in before they came to work for you, right? So we want to know, who is your job aspirational for? If you're trying to hire unemployed people right now, for the most part, huge generality here, but if their people are unemployed today, there's a reason, right? Like they're either choosing to, or there's stuff going on in their background. But the vast majority of unemployed people are either in short-term transition, or they've got some pattern of not being successful in the workplace. My guess here is that you are recruiting underemployed people, not unemployed people. That's my guess. And that's why it's so important to understand, by talking to your own people, what job did they have before they came to you, so we understand who sees your job as aspirational and the next logical step. We also want to identify people who are in their current job somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 years, because we have 15 years in the millennials in the workforce to know that they will change companies, not jobs. They will change companies every 3.5 years. And so if we identify people who are in a job for 3.3 years without being promoted, and we target them using our job search tools, using LinkedIn, using all of those things, we can identify people who are in the mindset and in the place that might likely want to make a change. The next thing I want to talk about is, as you create this persona of your ideal applicant, what is the flux? Talk to the people that are in your organization. What happened in their life that made them look for a new job? Leaving a job, changing jobs, is an enormously emotional thing. And so something emotional generally happens in their life in order for them to make this huge change. They leave to leave a job is emotional, guys. You leave everything you know behind, the people behind, your relationships. That's an emotional move. And so normally something emotional in their life pushes them to make that move. They get married, they buy a house, they have a child, they move into the area. So if we can anticipate the changes in people's lives that cause them to be open to moving, now we can again put that lure right in front of the trout at feeding time, not just kind of throw it randomly out in the lake. Identify the current and family life situation of the ideal employee, which means, again, talk to your current employees. What is the thing that happened that made, what change happened? Did they have their next baby? Did their spouse or significant other just graduate with their online degree and they became the primary breadwinner? What was it that made them think, I have to find a different job? Because again, if we can put your advertisement with the right words and phrases in front of people who are already of the mindset that they're looking to make a change, you can be on the end cap. You can be the answer to that change right at the moment when they are thinking of making that change. Going along with personality type, take a look at the hobbies. What we need to do to identify where these people are, if they're working, we need to be able to be in front of them when they're not at work. So by their personality type, if you identify the personality type of the people perfect for this job you're recruiting from using 16personalities.com and getting feedback from your own people, there's all kind of information online just by Googling favorite hobbies of ENTJs or ESTPs. And you can identify those kind of people, where their hobbies are. And you can not only advertise where those people go to have that hobby, but also create relationships with organizations that provide the tools that people use for those types of hobbies. And I will tell you that LinkedIn is the biggest advance in recruiting ever. And most people on this site, if you're normally like everyone else is, the vast majority of people are using 5% of it. You can build this persona, and then in your geographical radius, simply search LinkedIn for people in your geographical radius who fit this profile. You could each add the hobbies. You can add the personality type as a filter, and it'll filter down to those people who are in the jobs that have the tendency. We don't know if they're looking. All we know is that there's a really good likelihood based on all of this information that they'd be open to look for a new job. So if you're looking for salaried employees, LinkedIn is the tool. If you're looking for entry-level employees, identifying their common hobbies and advertising and creating relationships where they are is the important place. Let me give you a quick example. Recruiting, I am the subject matter expert for the National Roofing Contractors Association. You think your recruiting's hard? I have to make roofing sexy to 18 to 22-year-olds. And what we do is we identified, based on the personality type, we identified that the people who would be really great entry-level roofers on nights, weekends, and holidays, they're building cars, they're fixing cars, they're building go-karts, they're doing something with an engine, a snowmobile. And so what we do is we go create relationships with auto parts dealers, motorcycle shops, and we advertise where those people of the personality type, and we know they have that personality type because they're in that place to do that hobby or spend their time on the weekends. And then we put our advertising right in front of them. Obviously, guys, I'm trying to super rush through 20 years of knowledge here for you, but I want to give you at least a taste of where we are and where we're headed. The second concept that I want to give you today, and the last concept I want to give you today, is that I guarantee you, like after all 3,000 people sitting across the table from them, trying to figure out where to go, the number one reason that people who fit your organization are not applying is because they have some false preconceived notion about what it would be like to work for your company and your industry. And I want to teach you how to use that false preconceived notion to drive them into your organization. So what could a false preconceived notion be? Well, again, I told you that I'm the subject matter expert for the National Roofing Contractors Association. And if I asked you what your preconceived notions of roofing would be, you would say probably it's super physical, really dangerous. It's easy to fall off a roof. You can only do it 3 to 5 years because it beats the living heck out of your body. There's no way to grow in that industry. You're always working on slanted roofs, and so it's always dangerous. What if I told you for 61% of the roofing done in the nation, none of those things are true? What if I told you in the commercial roofing industry, we virtually never, ever work on anything but a flat roof? We have never once laid a shingle in our life. We don't have tar in buckets that have mops. The average person in their second year at 20 years old will make $60,000. They will be in the industry 26 years and have 4 positions if they stay in the industry that long. It's if you capture an idea here, it's what people think they know about your organization that keeps them from applying. It's what people think they know, but is false. And again, it's super easy to go to your current employees and say, listen, before you came to us, like you knew we existed, right? Either you didn't know we existed, and once you found out we existed, you came and applied, or you knew we existed for some period of time, but until you learned this about our organization, you didn't apply to come here. Go ask your current employees what false preconceived notions they had about your industry or your organization. And then I'm going to teach you next how to turn those things on their head. So think about preconceived notions people might have. Family-owned businesses, you never want to go there because they're political nightmares. And if your name isn't on the door, then you don't get to make any decisions. All big companies pay you well, but they beat the snot out of you and lay you off whenever the stock price goes low. All privately owned organizations are penny pinchers. All publicly owned organizations are controlled by the stock people. Nonprofit organizations don't pay anything. All those preconceived notions that you've actually heard. I'm telling you, you have actually heard these in conversations when you've told people what your company did or what industry you're in. I'm telling you that my job seekers, who just like the can of tomato soup, couldn't care less what name is on the top of their check. Now, the culture is important, right? The pay is important, all that stuff. But to be perfectly honest with you, just like the can of tomato soup, we don't really care if it's Campbell's or Progressive or whatever, as long as it fits the 4 or 5 critical priorities of a place to work. And so we can identify common misconceptions about our industry that we know, like we don't talk about it openly, but in our own thoughts and ideas, we know that people think, man, if you go into entry-level manufacturing, it's all dark, dirty, and dangerous. I come from manufacturing. I have pulp in my veins from the paper industry. I started sweeping the floor in a paper mill in 1986. And I can tell you the vast majority of 19 to 24-year-olds were taught by their parents that manufacturing is dark, dirty, and dangerous, and they'll lay you off as soon as things get tough. Now, is that true? Now, it really was true 35 years ago, at least in the places I worked. Is that true today? No, the vast majority of manufacturing places are interesting places with computers, and you need skills and understand software and programming, and they're incredibly clean and they're incredibly safe. But the people you're looking to appeal to did not learn that from their parents when they either watched them get laid off, watched them complain about how unsafe or how dirty it was 30 years ago. That's what your 19 to 24-year-olds think they know about manufacturing. And so we need to turn that on its head by creating something that called a tagline that billion-dollar companies use all day long, every day, that you're going to actually put at the very top of every advertising recruitment that you have. This phrase is important because it's affected you every single day, right? Nike, just do it. Well, Nike, just do it. Well, what does that mean? Just do what? Taglines are designed, and again, this is a concept I'd love for you to write down because it's very different than what you've been taught, but it's super effective. Taglines are not about giving information. They're about generating questions that can only be answered by contacting you in some way. Let me say that again. Taglines are about creating a question in the potential applicant's mind that they can only answer by contacting you in some way. So think about M&Ms. It melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Well, what does that even mean, right? Well, 80 years ago, chocolate didn't have an outside shell, and that tagline got people to buy M&Ms by the droves. McDonald's, I'm loving it. I'm loving what? Well, McDonald's says, whether you want to eat healthy or fat, we got something for you, but you got to come in here to see what it is. Walmart, save money, live better. What do you mean? I thought you had to spend more to live better. How can you spend less and live better? And Walmart says, we'd love to show you, but you got to come into the store. And so what I want you to consider is to create a tagline, identify the most commonly held false preconceived notion about your company or your industry. And then create a 3 to 5 word tagline. And again, this is not magic. Taglines are 3 to 5 words and contain an oxymoron. An oxymoron are two ideas that don't really belong together. They create questions. They make people's heads spin around like a German shepherd hearing a high-pitched whistle. Like, wait, what do you mean by that? Because our goal of a tagline is not to convince them to come to work for us. It's to create a question in their mind that they can only answer by calling HR or calling our company or sending us a text or whatever. Because what I want to do is I want to fill the top of your sales funnel. Listen, you have I'm not going to change your interview process or your hiring process. What you need is more people you need more trout jumping in your boat. You need more people circling your lure, more trout circling your lure. And so one of the things that an example of this is outside Pittsburgh, I work for a large commercial roofing company. We have a sign out on the road that says, you don't want to do roofing on slanted roofs. Good, we don't either. Now, what kind of calls do you think we got the Monday morning after we posted that? What do you work on? And I thought all roofing, because I saw my neighbor do roofing. I thought all roofing was on slanted roofs. The goal, you're making a mistake. I'm almost done with my time, but I got to tell you, you're making a huge mistake putting all your pay and benefits in your job ad, because you're giving my job seekers the opportunity to compare you with everybody else on a one-to-one basis, and they're just going to run whoever has the highest pay. You need to have them come talk to you. You need to have them send an email. You want people to have enough initiative and show enough initiative to want to interact with you, because that tells them that they're the right kind of people that really want to be part of your organization. So again, you don't have to believe this at all. But next time you see, something from a tagline that comes to you, right? Lexus, the relentless pursuit of perfection. And you say, well, wait a second, you can't be perfect with a car. How can you be perfect with a car? Lexus says, well, we'd love to show you, but you'll have to come into the showroom and take a look at one of our cars to see. So guys, tons more stuff. They're going to give a couple of copies of this out it's on Amazon, blah, blah, blah. Hundreds of companies use it. But I want you to know that you cannot think to win the war for talent just by changing 2 or 3 words on your job ad. And the last thing you want to do is just raise your wages because your competitors will raise your wages. That is a never-ending upward spiral that you cannot win. Instead of dragging a net by putting out an open job ad where you get 90% of the people who apply have absolutely no business or interest in actually applying, how about we create a profile of the exact person we want by talking to our own people who are really great, find out how they think, what their personality type is, how they found us, and then let's place advertising that speaks to them where they are when they're in the emotional place that they want to actually make a job change.